Welcome, dear listener, to Sleepy Story Facts, a gentle bedtime story, a soft nighttime story, and a relaxing story designed to help you fall asleep as you drift into deep sleep beneath the calmest sky you can imagine. And tonight, we begin at the edge of a silent cosmic sea, where a dormant black hole rests far away like a dark pearl in velvet, not threatening, not hungry, simply present, and around it, the universe stretches in all directions with such patience that even motion feels like stillness. And before we wander any farther into this soothing field of stars, let your body begin to settle, let your jaw unclench, let your shoulders soften their careful work, let the tiny muscles around your eyes grow loose and quiet, and let your breathing become slow enough that it no longer feels like effort at all, because this sleep story will ask nothing from you except that you rest and listen and allow each sentence to pass over you like a warm tide in the dark. And if there is any noise still clinging to the day, any unfinished thought, any bright little worry tapping at the glass, you may place it gently into an imaginary lantern and set it beside you on the shore, where it can glow faintly without following you. Because, for now, there is only calming narration, only gentle bedtime wonder, only the feeling of reclining in a vessel so soft and steady that it seems less like a ship and more like a floating cradle made of midnight and hush, carrying you not quickly, never quickly, but with exquisite slowness toward the great quiet topic of tonight, the mystery people call dark energy, that subtle name we give to the observation that the universe is not merely expanding, but expanding faster as immense ages pass, as though the very fabric of space has chosen, with serene determination, to keep opening and opening and opening. And there is something unexpectedly comforting in that idea, because it means the cosmos is spacious beyond measure, generous with distance, tender with room. And as you rest here in this bedtime story, your awareness may drift outward through the dim silver grains of starlight, past galaxies shaped like pinwheels and lantern smoke, past older light still traveling with noble patience, and into the broad dark between cosmic islands, where emptiness is not barren at all, but full of possibility, full of silence, full of the invisible structure of reality itself. And long ago, people imagined the universe might slow its expansion under gravity's patient pull, like a tossed object rising and easing before its return. Yet careful observations revealed a stranger, softer truth, that very distant exploding stars appeared dimmer than expected, suggesting that space had stretched more than anyone once assumed. And from that delicate clue came one of the most tranquil revolutions in modern science, the realization that on the largest scales, the universe seems guided by an unseen influence, not a wind, and not a force you could hear or touch in the ordinary sense, but a cosmic tendency that makes expansion accelerate over time. And because scientists are honest about mystery, they gave this unknown pattern a humble placeholder name, dark energy, which does not mean a shadowy substance drifting like smoke, but rather a label for something deeply real in its effects and still not fully understood in its nature. And perhaps that is part of what makes it such a perfect companion for the edge of sleep, because dark energy reminds us that not everything true must be grasped all at once. Not everything important arrives with noise, and not every answer has to hurry toward us before we are ready. And so, in this gentle bedtime voyage, we do not chase the mystery. We simply float near it, observing how galaxies on the grandest scales grow more distant from one another, not because they are racing through a fixed void like sparks in air, but because space itself is stretching the way dots on a slowly rising loaf move apart as the dough expands. Only here the loaf is all of reality, soft and immense and patient beyond language. And somewhere behind us, always present, is the sleeping black hole, its event horizon far enough away to be only a dark curve against the stars, a quiet monument to gravity, while around us, the wider universe performs the opposite gesture, not gathering inward, but unfolding outward. And in that contrast, there is a rare kind of peace, a balance between holding and releasing, between the deep pull of structure and the deep openness of expansion. And if your mind wishes for an image to rest upon, imagine the universe as a great dark blanket being lifted by invisible fingertips so slowly that no motion can be felt, only the increasing room beneath it. More room for galaxies, more room for time, more room for old light to travel, more room for you to sink gently through these words and toward sleep. And as this relaxing story continues, we will visit the old afterglow of the early cosmos, the patient work of astronomers, the calm mathematics of distance and light, and the beautiful question of why the largest stage of existence seems to widen with growing eagerness. But for tonight, for this first soft chapter, it is enough to know that the universe is vast, that its expansion is real, that its speeding expansion gave us one of science's most profound and dreamlike puzzles, and that you do not need to solve it before sleep takes you, because the finest thing you can do now is simply rest at the quiet shore of the sleeping universe, listening to the silence between stars, feeling your breath rise and fall like a small private tide, and letting the thought of endless, gentle space carry you farther into stillness, farther into softness, and farther into the beautiful dark, where even the largest mysteries speak in whispers. Now that you have settled into the hush of this drifting vessel, and the sleeping black hole remains behind you like a dark, polished stone resting in an endless sea of velvet, you may let your attention widen even more softly, because tonight's sleep story is not in any hurry, and neither is the universe, even when it is doing something astonishing. And one of the most relaxing facts about dark energy is that its great work happens so gradually, so quietly, and across such unimaginable distances that no human body could ever feel it directly. No window would rattle because of it. No pillow would shift. No breath would stumble. And yet, on the largest scales of existence, it is changing the future of everything by allowing space itself to stretch faster over time. And perhaps that is a soothing thought to carry into a bedtime story, that the grandest transformations are not always loud, not always sudden, not always dramatic, but can instead be almost tender in their patience, unfolding across billions of years, like a blanket being smoothed by invisible hands. And as our vessel glides through the stillness, the stars ahead seem almost fixed, though in truth, the galaxies beyond them are participating in a quiet widening, each vast cluster becoming more distant from the others, not because they are frantically pushing through space like hurried travelers, but because the very stage beneath them is growing larger, as if the floorboards of reality itself were gently lengthening in every direction. And this is one of the first calming facts to remember as you fall asleep, that cosmic expansion is not an explosion scattering pieces through emptiness, but an expansion of space itself, a soft and profound easing apart of the universe's deepest fabric. And long before dark energy became part of scientific language, astronomers had already learned that distant galaxies are receding, their light stretched toward redder wavelengths as the cosmos expands. But later, with remarkable care and patience, scientists studied a particular kind of stellar explosion called a type Ia supernova, which shines with such dependable brightness that it can serve as a cosmic lantern for measuring distance. And when these faraway lanterns seemed dimmer than expected, the conclusion emerged slowly and beautifully, like a truth rising through fog, that the expansion of the universe was not slowing down under gravity alone, but speeding up. And this discovery did not ruin the calm of the cosmos, it deepened it, because suddenly the universe became even stranger, even more spacious, even more full of quiet mystery than anyone had imagined. And dark energy, whatever it may ultimately be, appears to make up most of the total energy content of the cosmos, meaning that the largest share of the universe is tied to something subtle, invisible, and still not fully explained. And there is something deeply restful in allowing that mystery to remain open while you drift, because sleep does not ask for mastery, only trust, only surrender, only the willingness to float beside a question without trying to force it closed. And one especially peaceful way to picture dark energy is to imagine that empty space is not truly empty at all, but has its own faint, intrinsic character, a quiet pressure woven into the vacuum itself. And as the universe grows larger, there is more space, and with more space, there may be more of this calm, expansive influence, so the widening can continue and even increase, not as a burst, not as a shock, but as a slow and stately deepening of distance. And all around you now, in this gentle bedtime passage, the cosmos seems to demonstrate two opposite kinds of serenity at once, because nearby matter can still gather into stars and galaxies and black holes through gravity's inward tenderness, while on the very largest scales dark energy guides the broad architecture outward. And the result is a universe that both cradles and releases, that forms luminous islands and also lets the sea between them grow broader. And perhaps this is why the night sky has always invited human beings into thought that feels almost like prayer, because it shows us that reality is capable of holding contradictions without strain, stillness and motion, nearness and distance, darkness and radiance, gravity and expansion, all of them together in one vast, soft design. And as your breathing becomes more even, you may imagine the black hole behind us not as a menace, but as an anchor of perspective, a reminder of gravity's deep embrace. While ahead of us, the universe opens petal by petal into ever greater calm, and somewhere, very far away, ancient photons continue their journey toward whoever might receive them, carrying whispers from earlier cosmic times, while clusters of galaxies drift farther apart in a choreography too immense for urgency, too graceful for fear. And another relaxing fact for this nighttime story is that dark energy becomes most important on the largest scales, meaning your room, your bed, your body, your home, even your galaxy are not being pulled apart by some restless force, because gravity and other bindings hold local structures together with quiet loyalty. And so you are safe here in the smallest and most meaningful sense, held by blankets or darkness or the familiar weight of rest, even while the grand universe beyond continues its majestic widening. And perhaps that is the gentlest lesson of all, that peace can exist both in the intimate and in the immense, in the closed eyes of one sleepy listener, and in the expansion of everything. And so, for now, you need only remain here in this relaxing story, listening as the vessel barely hums, watching the dark pearl of the dormant black hole recede behind us by the smallest imaginable degree, and feeling the truth of tonight settle over you like cool starlight. That space is not static, that the cosmos is still unfolding, that dark energy is the name we give to this soft acceleration, and that somewhere within this calm and widening universe, you too are allowed to release your thoughts, loosen your grip on the day, and drift into deep sleep as gently as a galaxy, moving away through the endless, patient dark as our quiet vessel continues its slow passage through the velvet dark, and the dormant black hole behind us becomes only slightly smaller, like a smooth shadow resting at the far edge of memory. We turn now toward another of the most relaxing facts in this sleep story, a fact so gentle and so ancient that it arrives not as a flash, but as a whisper. And that is the existence of a faint, cool afterglow spread across the whole universe, a soft bath of microwave light known as the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light we can observe, born when the universe was very young and hot and dense, and then released when space had expanded enough for light to move freely at last. And if you imagine it now, not as something technical or coldly abstract, but as the last warmth in a great celestial room after the fire has settled, you begin to feel why scientists speak of it with such tenderness. Because this dim all-sky glow is a record of early cosmic time, a lingering hush from nearly the beginning, still present, still measurable, still wrapping all directions in the same ancient calm. And as a bedtime story drifts onward, this is a lovely thought to rest with, that the universe keeps its memories not in books or monuments, but in light itself, stretched and softened by expansion, until it has become a nearly uniform murmur. And this same expansion, which first cooled that early light from searing brilliance to delicate microwaves, is the backdrop for tonight's deeper wonder, because by studying that old glow, together with galaxies and supernovae, and the large-scale pattern of cosmic structure, Astronomers have learned that ordinary matter, the matter of stars and dust and planets and sleeping bodies, makes up only a small share of the cosmic whole, while dark matter contributes more through gravity, and dark energy appears to dominate the large-scale budget, quietly guiding the long future of expansion. And perhaps there is no more soothing lesson for a nighttime story than this, that the universe is mostly composed not of the bright things that shout for attention, but of the subtle things that do their work in silence. And here in the stillness, you may picture it all as layers of quiet influence, visible stars like lanterns, unseen matter like scaffolding, and dark energy like a patient opening of the room itself, making the distances between the lanterns wider with unimaginable grace. And one especially calming way to understand this is to remember that dark energy is not usually described as tugging on nearby objects in the ordinary way, but as shaping the large-scale behavior of space over immense reaches and immense times, which means your own small world remains gently held together, while the cosmos at its grandest scale keeps unfolding. And that distinction matters because it lets the mind rest, reminding you that the universe can be immense without being intrusive, mysterious without being harsh, expansive without disturbing the simple peace of one person lying still in the dark. And tonight, as this relaxing story continues, you may imagine the cosmic microwave background as a pale golden fog, long since cooled to invisibility to human eyes, surrounding all things with the memory of beginnings, while dark energy carries the universe toward ever greater breadth. And there is a beautiful contrast there, one whisper from the dawn of time and one whisper shaping the future, one ancient ember and one slow widening, together forming a cradle made of history and possibility. And as our vessel glides on, not rushing, never rushing, the stars around us remain serene, while the great black curve behind us keeps its peaceful place in the story, a monument to inward pull. And before us, the universe offers the opposite movement, outward, onward, softer and softer into distance. And another sleepy science fact to carry with you now is that the acceleration of expansion did not dominate from the very beginning, because in earlier eras, matter played the stronger role in slowing the cosmic growth. But as space became larger and the average density of matter thinned, dark energy came to matter more in the story of the whole, until the expansion began to speed up. And there is something almost musical in that transition, as if the universe changed from one slow movement to another, from early fire to cooler structure, from denser closeness to deeper openness, without ever breaking its rhythm. And perhaps that is why this gentle bedtime voyage feels so comforting, because the science itself is full of gradualness, of phases that unfold in patience, of truths that emerge through careful watching rather than force. And if sleep is beginning to gather at the edges of your awareness, you need do nothing but let it come, because these facts are not here to test you, only to hold you, to give your mind something vast and soft to drift upon, like a feather on a midnight tide. And now, the oldest light in existence seems almost to hum around us in its inaudible way, while the unseen energy of empty space keeps the cosmic sea growing broader, and the vessel carries you gently between memory and mystery, between the calm of what has been measured and the calm of what is still unknown, until even the idea of distance begins to blur into pure stillness, and your breathing, slow and even, becomes part of the same patient pattern, as if your own rest belongs naturally within a universe that has always known how to expand, cool, soften, and continue in the deep and velvety stillness of our drifting vessel. With the dormant black hole now resting far behind us like a dark moon polished by eternity, we continue this sleep story by turning toward one of the calmest and most beautiful methods science has ever used to understand the widening universe. And that is the patient reading of cosmic lanterns, those rare and faithful lights that help astronomers sense distance across the ocean of space. Because if dark energy is one of the grand, soft mysteries of existence, then the path by which we noticed it began not with thunder or spectacle, but with careful watching, with a long tenderness of attention. And as you settle even more deeply into this bedtime story, letting your breath become slow, and even you may imagine generations of quiet observers gazing into the night, studying points of light so far away that each one seems less like an object and more like a memory arriving late. And among those lights are certain stellar explosions called type Ia supernovae, remarkable because they shine with such similar intrinsic brightness that they can be used as what scientists call standard candles. Not candles of wax and flame, of course, but candles in the sense that if you know how bright something truly is, then by seeing how faint it appears, you may gently estimate how far away it must be. And this is a wonderfully soothing idea for a relaxing story, that even in a universe too vast to cross, there are lights that help us measure the dark with grace. And once those distant supernovae were observed with enough care, something subtle began to emerge from the silence, because the farthest among them appeared dimmer than expected in a universe whose expansion was slowing down under gravity alone. And that dimness was like a quiet clue left on the pillow of the cosmos, suggesting that space had stretched more during the light's journey than earlier models had assumed, which meant the expansion of the universe had sped up over time. And there is something almost dreamlike in that discovery, because it tells us that reality can reveal its deepest truths in the gentlest possible way, not through force, but through a slight difference in brightness, a soft adjustment in expectation, a tiny hush between what was predicted and what was seen. And perhaps that is why dark energy belongs so naturally in a nighttime story, because it reminds us that some of the largest truths in life arrive not as commands, but as whispers. And as our vessel glides onward through the soft architecture of the stars, you may picture those supernovae blooming in distant galaxies like brief white flowers opening in the cold gardens of space, their light setting out across billions of years, crossing expanding emptiness, slowly reddening as space itself stretches the waves, until at last that ancient glow reaches a telescope, a sensor, a human mind patient enough to notice. And another relaxing fact to rest with tonight is that redshift the stretching of light toward longer wavelengths, is not simply a mark of motion through space in the ordinary sense, but on cosmic scales, a sign that space itself has expanded while the light was traveling. So every ancient photon becomes, in a way, a little messenger carrying news of how much the universe has opened since its departure. And there is such peace in imagining that these quiet photons gliding endlessly, bearing no urgency, only information, only the slow poetry of distance. And as they arrive, they help reveal a cosmos where galaxies are not scattered randomly like hurried sparks, but arranged in patterns, filaments, and clusters, a great web suspended in dark stillness, with dark energy gradually influencing the future rhythm of that web by making the largest separations grow ever larger. And still, here where you rest, none of that vast expansion disturbs the immediate softness of your own small world, because local structures remain held together by gravity and by the familiar bonds of matter, just as this vessel remains whole, just as the black hole behind us remains one deep and silent curve in the dark. And this balance between intimacy and immensity is part of what makes the universe feel so comforting tonight, because it is possible for the cosmos to be enormous beyond comprehension and still leave room for one listener to drift peacefully toward deep sleep. And perhaps now, as the words continue to flow around you, you can sense how beautifully the science itself moves from lanterns to distances, from distances to expansion, from expansion to acceleration. All of it like a lullaby made of observation and wonder. And if your thoughts begin to loosen and float, let them do so, because there is no need to hold tightly to every fact, only to receive the feeling beneath them, the feeling that the universe is patient, that truth can be soft, that even the darkest spaces may be measured by light, and that dark energy, whatever it may finally prove to be, has already given us one of the most serene gifts in all of science, a vision of reality in which the great cosmic sea is not merely spreading, but gently learning to open faster, wider, quieter, while you rest inside your own small harbor of blankets, breath, and calm narration, letting this gentle bedtime drift farther and farther into the tranquil dark, where the stars grow softer, the vessel hums more faintly, and the mind, no longer needing to solve anything at all, simply floats tonight as the vessel continues its unhurried glide through the soft black stillness, and the dormant black hole behind us becomes a smaller and more peaceful curve against the velvet horizon. We arrive at one of the most soothing ideas in all of sleepy science, the possibility that empty space is not truly empty at all, but carries within it a faint and constant character, a quiet presence that does not glitter like a star or gather like a planet, yet may help explain why the universe expands faster as ages pass. And this idea, often connected to what scientists call the cosmological constant, is wonderfully fitting for a bedtime story, because it asks us to imagine that the calm dark between things is not a blank, not an absence, but a gentle participant in the story of everything. And as you rest more deeply now, letting the rhythm of these words become as slow as breathing itself, you may picture the universe not as a collection of objects scattered in a hollow void, but as a vast, soft fabric whose emptiest regions still possess a subtle nature, as though even silence has texture, even stillness has weight, even the spaces between galaxies hum with a hush too delicate to hear. And long ago, Albert Einstein introduced the cosmological constant into his equations of general relativity as a way to allow for a static universe, because in his time, many believed the cosmos as a whole was neither expanding nor contracting. And later, when expansion was discovered, he no longer needed that extra term in quite the same way. Yet in one of the loveliest turns in scientific history, something resembling that old idea returned in a new form, when astronomers found evidence that expansion is accelerating. And now the cosmological constant remains one of the simplest ways to describe dark energy, not as a gust or a wave or some dramatic burst from the dark, but as an ever-present property of space itself, steady and calm, acting with such patience that its influence only becomes clear across the broadest gulfs of time and distance. And there is comfort in that steadiness, because it means the universe may be guided on its largest scales, not by chaos, but by something astonishingly uniform, something that does not need to shout to be real, something that behaves the same in one quiet corner of space as in another. And if you allow your mind to soften around that thought, it can feel almost like lying beneath a ceiling of night and realizing that the darkness itself is kind, not empty in a lonely sense, but gently full in a way beyond ordinary touch. And another relaxing fact for this nighttime story is that when physicists describe the effect of dark energy in the language of pressure, they speak of a kind of negative pressure, a phrase that sounds technical by day, but by night may be imagined as a subtle tendency for space to open rather than tighten, to ease outward rather than draw inward. And while no simple image captures the mathematics perfectly, it may help to think of the cosmos as a great sleeping room whose walls recede so slowly that no one inside would ever feel a jolt, only a growing spaciousness, a widening hush, a larger and larger chamber for stars, galaxies, and old light to drift within. And here in our vessel, protected by distance and stillness, you can sense how beautifully this idea rests beside the black hole that lingers behind us, because the black hole is a monument to gravity's inward curve, a deep and silent gathering, while dark energy represents a vast outward ease on the largest scales, and together they make the universe feel balanced in a way that is strangely tender, as though reality itself knows how to hold close and how to let go, how to cradle and how to release. And perhaps this is why learning about dark energy can become such a calming narration for the mind, because it reveals that the cosmos is not frozen, not rigid, but alive with slow change. And yet that change is so patient, so immense in its timescale, that it feels less like disruption and more like exhalation, less like an event and more like a mood. And as you drift farther into this gentle bedtime, another peaceful thought rises with the dark around us, that scientists do not pretend to know every detail of dark energy. And this honesty is one of the most reassuring things in all of science, because it shows that wonder and knowledge can rest together without conflict, that careful measurement can live beside mystery, and that not every unanswered question must be solved before peace becomes possible. And so the vessel glides on, its motion almost imaginary, while the stars remain calm and the distant galaxies continue their slow recession through expanding space. And the ancient black horizon behind us softens into memory, and somewhere in the great mathematics of the cosmos, this quiet ingredient, whether vacuum energy or something even stranger, continues shaping the future with unhurried consistency, encouraging the largest distances to grow, the deepest night to open, the farthest shores of existence to drift ever farther apart. And if sleep is near now, let it come in the same manner, not all at once, not with effort, but as a gradual widening away from wakefulness, a soft expansion of rest, a loosening of thought into a larger and gentler dark, until even the idea of understanding fades into something softer than understanding, and you simply float, held between the tender inward silence of the black hole behind and the serene outward breathing of the universe ahead, safe in the middle, quiet in the middle, and ready at last to fall asleep inside a cosmos that keeps unfolding with infinite patience. Now, as the vessel glides farther into the patient quiet, and the dormant black hole behind us has become a small and velvety crescent of darkness, hardly more than a memory resting on the far rim of space, we continue this sleep story by listening to one of the softest songs the universe knows, the slow music of galaxies growing apart, because dark energy is not only an idea written in equations or hinted at by distant supernovae. It is also a long, unfolding pattern written across the largest architecture of existence, a calm widening that no one could ever hear with ordinary ears, and yet can be understood as a kind of cosmic rhythm, a deep and silent measure that moves through billions of years with perfect patience. And as you settle more deeply into this bedtime story, letting your body become heavy and your thoughts become light, you may imagine the universe as a vast midnight garden filled with island cities of stars, each galaxy glowing softly in its own place, each cluster resting like dew on an unseen web. And all across the grandest distances, these islands drift farther from one another, because space itself keeps stretching, not with haste, not with strain, but with the serene certainty of something following its nature. And one especially relaxing fact to carry with you tonight is that this expansion does not erase the beauty of structure, because galaxies themselves can remain bound together. Galaxy clusters can hold their members in gravity's embrace. And even while the larger cosmic stage grows broader, there are still places where matter gathers, where stars shine, where the local world remains whole and tenderly connected. And perhaps that is comforting in a gentle bedtime, because it means the universe understands both distance and belonging, both release and closeness, and there is room for both in the same vast design. And as our vessel drifts onward in this calming narration, the forward darkness seems almost to breathe, not because space is alive in any ordinary sense, but because its scale is so immense and its changes so patient that the mind begins to feel them the way it feels a tide at night, more through mood than through motion, more through trust than through proof. And another sleepy science fact to rest within is that astronomers can study the large-scale arrangement of galaxies like cartographers of a dream, mapping where matter gathered over cosmic time, tracing the faint scaffolding of the universe and comparing those patterns with models of expansion, until the story that emerges is one in which dark energy gradually comes to dominate the future, shaping a cosmos where the great distances continue to increase. And that future is not violent in the picture we are holding tonight, not a tearing or a sudden vanishing, but a progressive quieting of the farthest reaches, a future in which more and more galaxies drift beyond one another's easy view, leaving each great island of stars more alone in the endless softness. And even that can be imagined peacefully here, because solitude in the cosmos need not feel lonely when told as a nighttime story. It can instead feel like spaciousness, like privacy, like a great cathedral of dark, where every light is allowed its own halo. And perhaps the deepest comfort in dark energy is this, that it teaches us how much can happen without noise, how much the universe can transform while remaining calm, how the greatest changes may arrive with no more disturbance than the widening of silence between distant bells. And now, if you like, picture one ancient galaxy far ahead of us, its stars gathered in a slow turning wheel, its glow faint and amber after crossing unimaginable time. And then picture another, even farther still, its light stretched more strongly by expansion, redder, softer, more remote, and between them not emptiness in the simple sense, but an ever-growing field of space whose quiet nature shapes the journey of light itself. And this is such a lovely thought for falling asleep, that even light, the great traveler of the universe, moves through a cosmos that is still becoming, still opening, still carrying old messages across a changing sea. And all the while our vessel remains suspended in perfect stillness, neither hurried nor lost, only present. And the black hole behind us continues to diminish until it feels less like an object and more like an anchor of memory, a symbol of gravity's inward hush, while dark energy ahead becomes the symbol of outward hush. And between those two silences, you drift, held in the middle of a beautiful balance, with your breath becoming slower, your limbs softer, your awareness gentler, until the words themselves begin to feel like distant starlight. And if some part of your waking mind still wants answers, you may let it rest for now beside the same mystery that scientists themselves still hold with care, because dark energy has not yet given up all its secrets, and there is no need for it to do so tonight, not while sleep is so near, not while the cosmos is offering you something even kinder than certainty, which is wonder without pressure, truth without urgency, mystery without fear. And so the galaxies keep their slow and dignified parting across the great breadth of time, and the universe continues its vast, silent expansion. And you, here in this relaxing story, may follow that motion inward in your own way, not outward into distance, but downward into rest, farther from the day farther from effort, farther from every bright and restless thought, until the whole immense night becomes a cradle of dark velvet and faint silver light, and you sink into it as gently as a drifting star disappears into dawnless sleep as our vessel continues its slow and silken passage through the endless dark. And the dormant black hole behind us has softened into the smallest trace of a shadow. Like a charcoal moon dissolving into memory, we arrive at another of the most relaxing facts in this sleep story. One that begins not with stars themselves, but with ancient ripples, soft patterns left behind from the youth of the universe, delicate waves that once moved through the hot, early cosmos, and whose faint imprint can still be sensed in the great arrangement of galaxies today. And perhaps there is no more soothing image for a bedtime story than this, that long before planets cooled, before stars settled into their luminous habits, before even the oldest galaxies had fully taken shape, the young universe was filled with a kind of gentle pressure and motion, a vast glowing sea where matter and light were coupled together. And within that early sea, tiny fluctuations drifted outward like ripples spreading across a perfectly dark pond. And though those ripples belonged to an age almost beyond imagination, they left a subtle pattern in the large-scale structure of everything that followed, like rings preserved in still water long after the first touch has vanished. And now, in this quiet nighttime story, you may imagine astronomers not as hurried collectors of data, but as patient listeners leaning close to the silence of the universe, tracing those old ripples in the spacing of galaxies, noticing that matter is not scattered without rhythm, but arranged with a faint memory of ancient motion. And these preserved ripples, sometimes called baryon acoustic oscillations in the language of science, offer yet another serene way of measuring the expansion of the cosmos, because they provide a kind of standard ruler stretched across the darkness, a quiet pattern that helps reveal how space has changed over time. And there is something deeply comforting in that, because it means the universe carries its own measuring song within it, its own built-in hush of proportion and memory. And as our vessel glides onward through this relaxing story, you may feel how beautifully that fits with the mystery of dark energy. For the more carefully these old cosmic ripples are mapped, the more clearly the larger picture appears. A picture in which the universe not only expands, but does so with a calm acceleration, widening ever more gently, yet ever more steadily as ages pass. And this is one of the loveliest truths to rest beside as you begin to fall asleep, that science can learn from what is faint, from what is almost lost, from what would be easy to miss in a noisier world. And perhaps sleep itself is like that, arriving not with a shout, but through subtle signs, through small softenings, through a quiet release that spreads through the body, the way those first ripples spread through the early universe. And now the stars beyond our window seem less like separate lights and more like notes in an enormous score, each galaxy placed within a pattern too large to hold all at once, yet calm enough to trust. And dark energy moves through that score, not as a melody you can hear directly, but as a slow change in tempo, a deep cosmic easing that gives the entire composition more room, more distance, more breadth. And as you settle farther into this gentle bedtime, there is no need to memorize any term or hold tightly to any explanation, because what matters most here is the feeling beneath the fact, the feeling that reality is full of quiet coherence, that even the vast emptiness between galaxies is part of a meaningful design, and that the oldest ripples of the universe still whisper through the arrangement of matter like a lullaby too old for language. And another sleepy science fact to carry softly now is that when astronomers compare different cosmic clues, the old background glow, the distant supernova lanterns, the grand map of galaxy clustering, they are not gathering noise, but weaving together a calmer and clearer picture of the universe's long behavior. And again, that picture suggests the same serene truth, that something like dark energy shapes the broad future of the cosmos, allowing space to open faster over unimaginable spans. And still, this does not disturb the tenderness of local things, the nearness of a blanket, the rhythm of breath, the familiar shelter of one resting body in one quiet room, because the universe can be vast without being invasive, immense without being harsh. And so our vessel remains poised between scales, carrying you through thoughts of the earliest cosmic ripples, while all around us, the present night holds steady, and somewhere far behind the black hole continues its calm and distant watch, a dark emblem of gravity's inward hush, while ahead of us expansion continues its outward hush. And between them, your own awareness becomes lighter and lighter, as though each thought were drifting farther apart from the next, leaving more room for silence, more room for rest, more room for the kind of deep sleep that comes when the mind no longer tries to solve the stars, but simply reclines beneath them. And if sleep has not fully arrived yet, that too is perfectly gentle, because this sleep story asks only that you float, that you listen, that you let the old ripples of the universe carry you as tenderly as a cradle rocking on a black and starry sea, until even the idea of distance becomes soft, and the patterns of galaxies, the expansion of space, the ancient memory of motion, and the quiet mystery of dark energy all blend into one long exhale of cosmic peace, as the vessel continues its silent and untroubled drift through the wide black sea of space. And the dormant black hole behind us has diminished into little more than a velvet mark at the edge of recollection. We arrive at another of the most relaxing facts in this sleep story, a fact so spacious and gentle that it feels less like a lesson and more like lying down inside a great quiet room. And that fact is this, that on the largest scales, scientists have found the universe appears to be very nearly flat. Not flat like a sheet of paper in the ordinary sense, but flat in the deeper geometric sense, meaning that space across immense distances does not seem strongly curved overall. And there is something wonderfully calming in that picture, because it suggests a cosmos that opens wide, and even a vast and patient expanse through which light travels with elegant steadiness. And as this bedtime story carries you onward, you may imagine the universe as an endless dark plane of softness, not empty, never truly empty, but subtle and immense, with galaxies like lanterns set very far apart, each one resting in its own halo of quiet, and between them, the broad geometry of reality itself, extending with such balance that even its mysteries feel smooth around the edges. And this near flatness matters because the shape of the universe is tied to its contents, to matter, to dark energy, to the total cosmic balance that decides how space behaves on the grandest scale. And when astronomers study the oldest light, the arrangement of galaxies, and the brightness of distant stellar lanterns, the picture that emerges is one of remarkable harmony. A universe whose geometry and expansion together tell the story of a cosmos still unfolding, still widening, still easing itself outward with serene confidence. And perhaps that is why this nighttime story can feel so restful, because the science itself is not jagged or frantic, but full of long patterns, soft measurements, and truths that reveal themselves like stars through thin cloud. And another sleepy science fact to rest with now is that if dark energy continues to behave in the calm and steady way it seems to today, then the future of the universe may be one of continued expansion, a slow and stately deepening of distance in which faraway galaxies drift farther still, until the night between great cosmic islands becomes broader, darker, and even more peaceful. And that future need not be imagined as cold or lonely here, not in this relaxing story, because in the language of gentle bedtime imagination, it can instead feel like a quiet library, growing more spacious with every passing hour. Each galaxy a lamp at its own table, each cluster a soft-lit reading room, and the darkness between them not hostile but restful, a hush that protects thought, dream, and silence. And as our vessel glides through that imagined stillness, the stars around us seem almost suspended, while the truth beneath their beauty is that the stage itself is changing, the floor of space slowly stretching, the distances lengthening, the old light traveling through a universe that never quite stops becoming. And if your thoughts are beginning to grow drowsy now, you may let them drift with that image, because there is no need to hold tightly to geometry or equations, only to feel the deep comfort that the cosmos can possess structure without rigidity, mystery without confusion, and motion without hurry. And perhaps one of the gentlest things dark energy teaches us is that expansion can be soft, that growth can happen in silence, that widening need not mean rupture, but can instead mean release, like a long exhale after a day of effort, like the gradual loosening of a mind that no longer needs to solve anything before sleep arrives. And now the vessel seems almost motionless, though motion continues, and the black hole behind us remains a distant token of gravity's inward embrace, while ahead of us, the universe expresses its opposite tendency on the largest scales, not collapse, but opening, not tightening, but spaciousness. And between those two gestures, you are held in a perfect middle, in the calm center of this calming narration, where a sleep story becomes a place to rest. A bedtime story becomes a field of stars, and a gentle bedtime becomes not merely a moment before sleep, but a doorway into deep sleep itself. And another peaceful thought to carry is that even when science speaks of uncertain things, It often does so with extraordinary care, testing, revising, measuring, listening, never rushing the darkness. And that patience is part of the beauty, because the universe seems to reward those who watch quietly, those who notice faint patterns, those who allow time to reveal what noise cannot. And so tonight, as you continue to fall asleep, you may picture the whole cosmos as nearly flat and endlessly calm. A vast dark plain across which galaxies drift like distant embers, while dark energy gently encourages the great widening to continue. And if there is any final effort left in the mind, let it go now. Let it dissolve into the soft geometry of the night, into the long, peaceful reach of expanding space, into the tranquil certainty that you do not need to travel to the end of the universe to feel its calm, because that calm is already here, in the slow rhythm of breath, in the heaviness of rest, in the velvet stillness behind closed eyes, and in the endless, patient dark that keeps opening, until thought itself becomes as light as starlight and as quiet as sleep, as the vessel drifts onward through the soft and immeasurable dark. And the dormant black hole behind us has faded into such distance that it feels more like a memory than a place. We arrive at one of the most peaceful ideas in the sleep story, the idea that the universe may follow a quiet balance written into its very fabric, a balance so broad and gentle that it reveals itself only across the largest scales. And this is a lovely moment in our bedtime story to rest with the simple heart of the mystery. Because when scientists ask why expansion speeds up, they are really asking why the cosmos, after so much time, seems to favor more room, more distance, more unfolding. And one of the calmest ways to imagine it is not as a contest or a struggle, but as a difference in influence, since matter and gravity tend to gather and slow, while dark energy, whatever its deepest nature may be, seems to encourage space itself to open. And over immense ages, that opening becomes more important as matter spreads thinner, until the wider universe enters a long, serene era in which expansion accelerates. And perhaps this is such a soothing fact for a nighttime story, because it tells us that the cosmos changes its mood gradually, not all at once, not with any harsh turn, but with an ancient patience that allows one influence to become quieter while another becomes clearer. Like the way evening does not suddenly become night, but deepens shade by shade until the whole sky is ready for stars. And now, as you rest in this relaxing story, you may imagine the universe itself as breathing outward, not in pulses that shake or disturb, but in a single vast exhale extended across billions of years. And every galaxy far away becomes part of that exhale, carried not by wind, not by force in the ordinary sense, but by the steady widening of the stage beneath it. And there is comfort in knowing that this widening is not something violent in your own small world, because local things remain held together by gravity, by matter, by closeness, by the familiar tenderness of structure, while only on the grandest scales does the quiet preference for more space become the leading theme. And this is one of the most relaxing facts to fall asleep to, that the universe can be changing enormously without disturbing the softness of the room around you. And another gentle thought to carry is that dark energy does not need to be fully understood to be beautifully real in its effects, just as the ocean need not explain every wave before you can listen to its hush. And so, in this gentle bedtime drift, we do not force the mystery to speak too sharply. We only sit beside it and notice the calm pattern it leaves behind, the dimmer than expected lanterns of distant supernovae, the old light of the early cosmos, the arrangement of galaxies, the vast near flatness of space, all of them together, suggesting the same tender conclusion that the universe expands, and that its expansion has entered a faster phase. And somehow, even that scientific statement feels soft tonight, because faster on cosmic scales is still slow beyond imagination, still patient beyond language, still too graceful to be felt as anything but deep time unfolding. And as our vessel continues its silent course, the stars ahead seem farther apart than thoughts in a drowsy mind. And between them lies that immense dark, which is not empty in any lonely sense, but full of possibility, full of geometry, full of old light traveling, full perhaps of that faint property of space itself that helps explain the acceleration. And another sleepy science fact is that when the universe becomes larger, matter becomes more diluted, spread across more room, while dark energy, if it behaves like a constant feature of space, does not fade in the same way. And because of that, as the cosmic room grows, the quiet influence of dark energy becomes ever more important to the overall story. And this is so peaceful to imagine, because it means the universe is not hurrying toward chaos, but simply following the calm logic of its own largeness, allowing spaciousness itself to matter more as spaciousness increases. And perhaps there is even a lesson in that for a sleep story, because the more room you allow inside your mind tonight, the less weight each thought needs to carry, the thinner the old worries become, the less tightly the day can hold you, until rest itself grows more important than effort, more present than tension, more real than unfinished things. And now the vessel seems suspended between two silences, the inward hush of the almost vanished black hole behind us, and the outward hush of accelerating space ahead. And between those silences, your breath becomes the smallest and kindest rhythm, rising and falling like a lantern on a midnight tide, while the universe continues its long, gentle widening beyond all walls and windows and names. And if your awareness is beginning to blur at the edges, let it blur, because this bedtime story does not ask you to stay fully awake for every fact, only to feel the peace within them, the strange and beautiful reassurance that even the greatest mystery can be soft, that even expansion can feel like release, and that somewhere in the deep dark beyond sight, the cosmos keeps opening with such patience, such steadiness, and such quiet grace that you may let go as well, loosening your thoughts one by one into the widening night, sinking farther into calming narration, farther into deep sleep, and farther into the serene dream of a universe that never stops unfolding, yet never once needs to rush. Tonight, as our vessel moves deeper into the immeasurable calm, and the dormant black hole behind us has thinned into almost nothing at all, a remembered curve in the dark rather than a visible place, we come to one of the most comforting ideas in the sleep story. The idea that light itself can serve as a kind of patient clock, a quiet keeper of time that travels across the universe without hurry, carrying the age of distant things toward us with exquisite gentleness. And this is such a lovely thought for a bedtime story, because it means that whenever astronomers look far into space, they are also looking softly backward in time, seeing galaxies not as they are in some immediate and restless present, but as they were long ago, when their light first began its patient journey through expanding space. And as you rest more deeply now, perhaps drifting closer to deep sleep with every sentence, you may imagine each photon as a tiny lantern boat crossing a black and silent sea, never rushed, never lost, simply moving onward through the widening room of the cosmos until, after millions or billions of years, it reaches a waiting eye or instrument and quietly says, "This is how things once were." And one of the most relaxing facts about dark energy is that it changes not only the future of the universe, but also the path that ancient light must cross. Because as space expands, the journey grows in a sense broader. The waves of light stretch. The distances between cosmic shores increase, and what arrives carries within it the memory of a universe that was younger, denser, and arranged a little differently than the one we inhabit now. And perhaps there is no gentler science fact to fall asleep to than this, that the night sky is a gallery of old moments, a drifting museum of light, where every faint galaxy is offering not urgency, but remembrance, not pressure, but perspective. And as our vessel glides on in this calming narration, the stars ahead seem serene and almost still. Yet behind their stillness lies the most patient of motions, for the universe is not frozen at all, and light, which so often feels immediate in daily life, becomes in the cosmic dark a great archivist, preserving the soft history of expansion. And another soothing thought to carry tonight is that when scientists measure the brightness, color, and redshift of distant objects, they are learning how the cosmos has changed over time, tracing how matter once shaped the pace of expansion more strongly, and how later, as the universe grew larger and matter became more spread out, dark energy came to guide the broader story with increasing calm. And there's something almost like a lullaby in that transition, a movement from one cosmic mood to another, from younger closeness to older spaciousness, from denser brightness to wider hush, and all of it unfolding without any need for spectacle, without any need to disturb a single sleeping room on a single quiet planet. And perhaps that is why this relaxing story feels so gentle, because the science itself is made of long delays, soft clues, and vast patience. And now, if you like, picture a very distant galaxy whose light began its journey long before our own world looked the way it does now. A pale island of stars sending its message across the cosmic deep, while space slowly expands beneath that message, stretching its color redder, making its path longer, and turning its arrival into an act of extraordinary patience. And this is one of the hidden comforts of dark energy, that it teaches the mind to think in slow motions, to trust great spans, to release the need for everything to happen at once. And in a gentle bedtime like this one, that lesson can feel almost medicinal, because sleep too is a surrender to time, a willingness to let the mind drift rather than command, to let awareness fade by degrees rather than insist on control. And another sleepy science fact is that even the most powerful telescopes do not simply collect pictures. They collect moments from the deep past, assembling a portrait of cosmic history from old light that arrives in layers. Some younger, some older, some from eras when the influence of dark energy had not yet come to dominate the large-scale unfolding, and some from later times when expansion had already begun its serene acceleration. And in this way, the universe becomes not only wide, but richly layered in time, like a calm lake holding reflections from different skies. And as our vessel carries you farther through this nighttime story, the darkness all around feels less like absence and more like depth, less like emptiness and more like a patient archive through which old light travels. And behind us, the black hole has nearly dissolved into pure memory, a symbol now of gravity's inward stillness, while ahead of us, the widening cosmos offers the opposite stillness, an outward stillness, a spacious quiet in which distant galaxies continue to part with great dignity. And between those two silences, you float so gently that even your thoughts may begin to separate and soften, each one drifting farther from the next until there is more room between them, more black velvet, more ease, more rest. And if you feel yourself sinking now, a little farther from waking, and a little nearer to the deep, warm hush of sleep, you may let the oldest light in the universe keep watch for you. You may let the patient clocks of space and time continue their silent work without you. And you may simply rest inside this bedtime story, this sleep story, this gentle bedtime passage through widening darkness, knowing that the cosmos has all the time it needs, and so do you, and that somewhere across unimaginable distances, ancient light is still traveling softly through expanding space, bearing its calm testimony from the long ago, while you drift downward through the tender present into the peaceful dark of dreams as our vessel glides farther into the serene and widening dark. And the dormant black hole behind us has now become so faint that it lives more in memory than in sight. We come to one of the gentlest ideas in all of sleepy science, the idea that in a universe whose expansion keeps accelerating, there may be regions so far away that their light will never fully reach us in the far future, not because anything dramatic blocks the way, but because space itself continues opening between distant places with such patient persistence. And this is a perfect thought for a bedtime story, because it transforms the idea of a horizon into something soft, not a wall, not a sharp edge, but a quiet limit shaped by time and distance and the slow elegance of the cosmos. And as you rest more deeply now, letting your mind float as easily as dust in starlight, you may imagine the universe not as a closed chamber, but as an ever-opening field where the farthest lanterns shine across such tremendous gulfs that some of their glow gradually becomes too remote, too stretched, too gently withdrawn to remain part of our visible future. And there is something strangely peaceful in that, because the universe does not snatch these things away. It simply gives them more and more room until their presence softens into the great hush of distance. And one especially relaxing fact to fall asleep to is that this kind of cosmic horizon is not like the horizon of a sea you could sail toward, but a horizon made from the history of expansion itself, a boundary woven from the way light travels through a cosmos that keeps unfolding faster over time. And so even light, faithful traveler though it is, must cross a stage that is changing beneath it, a stage whose widening can become so profound that the farthest regions remain forever beyond the reach of future contact. And yet, even this thought can feel comforting in the language of a gentle bedtime, because it suggests not loss in any harsh sense, but a deepening privacy in the universe, a calm separation of distant shores, as if the cosmos were slowly dimming the lamps in its farthest halls, so that nearer rooms may glow more softly, more intimately, more quietly. And perhaps that is why dark energy belongs so naturally in a sleep story, because it teaches us that the largest changes in existence may happen through distance rather than noise, through quiet unfolding rather than collision, through the simple patience of space becoming more spacious still. And as our vessel continues its almost dreamlike drift, the stars around us seem to rest within their own halos of silence, while ahead lies the idea of an ever more secluded future, one in which galaxies beyond our local cosmic neighborhood slip gradually farther from easy view, their light redshifted, softened, and stretched by expansion, until the night grows larger and calmer between the remaining islands of stars. And another soothing fact for this nighttime story is that our own local group of galaxies can remain bound together by gravity, even while the larger universe expands around it. So the future suggested by dark energy is not one of everything flying apart in sudden panic, but one of quiet islands keeping their nearness while the distant ocean broadens. And that image is so deeply restful that it hardly feels like science at all, but more like a lullaby written in the language of scale, a reminder that closeness and remoteness can coexist, that the familiar can remain sheltered even while the far horizons drift away. And if your body is sinking more fully into stillness now, you may let that image hold you, a small, warm cluster of nearness within an immense and patient dark, while beyond you the grand architecture of the universe continues its slow rearrangement without hurry, without sound, without demand. And perhaps one of the most tender lessons hidden in this cosmic picture is that not everything distant must remain available forever for the universe to remain beautiful, because beauty does not vanish when it becomes remote. It simply changes register, becoming softer, rarer, more dreamlike, like a memory that fades not into emptiness, but into gentleness. And in that way, the accelerating expansion of the cosmos begins to resemble sleep itself. For as you drift away from waking, the bright, close details of the day recede, the sharp outlines loosen, the far concerns blur into velvet, and what remains nearest is breath, warmth, stillness, and the faint comfort of being held inside something larger than thought. And now, the black hole behind us is almost completely gone into the dark, leaving only the knowledge that gravity once anchored our gaze there, while ahead of us dark energy offers a different kind of anchor, not a point to hold, but a direction of feeling outward, wider, quieter, more open. And under that influence, the whole universe seems to exhale forever, each era becoming roomier than the last, each future more spacious than the one before, until the very notion of a far edge becomes less a boundary than a whisper, less a limit than a soft fading into unreachable calm. And if your thoughts are dimming now at their edges, if each sentence is beginning to feel like a wave arriving from farther away, then you are exactly where this relaxing story hoped to carry you, into a state where knowledge becomes comfort, where mystery becomes cradle, where the ever-expanding sky no longer feels large in a way that burdens you, but large in a way that relieves you, giving every thought more room to dissolve, every worry more room to thin, every breath more room to settle, until you no longer need to follow the distant light at all, and may simply rest here in the gentle bedtime hush, safe in your small island of nearness, while the far horizon of the universe grows quieter and quieter, and the dark opens with infinite patience around your sleep. Now, as our vessel drifts farther into the grand and tender darkness, and the dormant black hole behind us has faded so completely that it feels less like an object and more like a memory held in the folds of space, we arrive at another of the most relaxing facts in this sleep story, a fact so gentle that it can be carried easily into deep sleep. And that is this, that the universe does not simply become larger in some restless or dramatic way, but continues its widening with a patience so immense that even the concept of speed begins to soften into calm. And when we say that expansion speeds up, we do not mean that the cosmos is rushing like a storm or straining like a machine, but that over the deepest reaches of time, more and more distant galaxies find themselves separated by a growing stretch of space, as though the great fabric of the night were being drawn slowly outward by invisible, steady hands. And perhaps this is one of the most soothing ideas of all to fall asleep to, because it means the universe is not fixed and tight and unmoving, but open, spacious, forgiving, and always allowing more room, more silence, more distance for light to travel and old stars to rest inside. And as this bedtime story continues, you may imagine reality itself as a vast velvet chamber whose walls are so far away they cannot truly be called walls at all. Only horizons of softness that keep receding without sound, while galaxies remain scattered through the dark like dim golden embers, each one glowing gently in its own quiet neighborhood. And one especially calming science fact is that dark energy seems smooth, and even on the largest scales, not clumped into bright knots the way matter gathers into stars and planets, but spread through the very spaciousness of the cosmos, subtle and difficult to name. And because of that smoothness the universe feels in this gentle bedtime imagination, less like a crowded field of competing objects, and more like a broad sleeping ocean whose surface rises so gradually that no wave ever breaks. And as you listen, your own thoughts may begin to mimic that great softness, spreading farther apart from one another, no longer clustered tightly, no longer pressing, but floating with more space between them. And perhaps that is why a relaxing story about dark energy can feel so unexpectedly comforting, because the science itself becomes a kind of lullaby, teaching the mind that widening can be peaceful, that distance can be serene, that not every form of change must arrive with noise. And now the vessel seems almost still within the stillness, and though the stars ahead remain faint and numerous, they appear gentler than before, as though the whole cosmos were dimming itself to match the hour. And another sleepy science fact to carry softly now is that the future of a dark energy-shaped universe is often imagined as one of continued large-scale isolation, with the farthest galaxies slipping ever farther from view, their light stretched thinner and redder, until each bound island of stars lives within a larger sea of darkness than before. And yet, even that picture can be peaceful here, because darkness in this story is never empty in a lonely way, only restful, protective, spacious, like the hush of a room after every lamp but one has been lowered. And in that hush, there is no urgency to understand everything, no need to gather every star before it drifts, because beauty is not diminished by being distant, and mystery is not threatening when approached with calm. And perhaps the greatest comfort hidden inside the science of dark energy is that the universe itself seems to know how to let go slowly, how to release its farthest lights without grief or alarm, how to become quieter by degrees. And so your own waking thoughts may do the same tonight, loosening one by one, receding without struggle, until only the nearest things remain: the rise and fall of breath, the softness beneath you, the gentle cadence of this nighttime story, and the feeling that all around your small resting place the immense cosmos continues its patient unfolding without needing anything from you at all. And if somewhere in your drowsy mind there is still a wish to picture dark energy more clearly, you may imagine it simply as the hush within space that gives the universe permission to keep opening, a kind of silent generosity written into the dark itself. And while that picture is only a poetic doorway and not the full language of science, it carries the feeling well, the feeling of endless room, endless ease, endless calm. And now, with the black hole fully dissolved into the past of our journey, the voyage feels less like travel and more like suspension, as if we have entered the deepest chamber of the cosmos, where distance is no longer something to cross, but something to rest inside. And here the stars are sparse and dignified, the darkness velvety and kind, the future wide beyond measure, and the great question of why expansion speeds up becomes less a puzzle to solve than a rhythm to float upon. Because, in the end, what dark energy offers this sleep story is not only scientific wonder, but emotional spaciousness, a reminder that there is room enough for slowness, room enough for mystery, room enough for unfinished thoughts to fade without being forced into order. And so, as the universe keeps opening with calm and unimaginable patience, you may open too, not your eyes, not your waking mind, but the small inner gates that let sleep enter, letting yourself drift farther from effort, farther from detail, farther from every bright edge of the day, until your awareness becomes as light as ancient starlight and as quiet as the expanding dark, And all that remains is this gentle bedtime, this calming narration, this sleep story of a universe that widens without fear and rests without end, as our vessel rests within the deepest hush of the widening universe. And the black hole from the beginning of our journey has now faded so completely into memory that it feels like a dream remembered only by its mood. We arrive at another of the most relaxing facts in this sleep story, a fact that may sound mysterious at first and then become strangely comforting. And that is this, that the bright familiar things, stars, planets, dust, the glowing shapes that catch the eye and fill the imagination, are only a small part of the whole, while most of the cosmos belongs to the quiet, the subtle, the nearly invisible. And perhaps there is no gentler idea for a bedtime story than that, because it means the universe is not built mainly from brilliance or noise or display, but from hidden structure and silent influence, from the deep patience of what does not need to shine in order to matter. And as you sink a little farther into this relaxing story, letting your breathing grow slower and your thoughts become wider apart, you may imagine the cosmos as a great dark ocean where only the uppermost ripples catch the moonlight, while below them lies the true vastness, calm and untroubled and immense beyond measure. And in that image, the stars become only the silver flecks on the surface. Beautiful, yes, but not the whole sea, not even close. And another sleepy science fact to carry softly tonight is that the matter we know in the ordinary sense, the kind that forms bodies and books and beds and air and distant suns, is only a slender part of cosmic reality, while unseen dark matter shapes galaxies with its gravity and dark energy, seems to guide the largest scale expansion with its quiet outward influence. And there is something deeply restful in allowing the unseen to be important, because sleep itself is made of unseen things, of inner changes no eye can watch directly, of silent transitions, of hidden chemistry, of thought dissolving into dream without any bright announcement. And perhaps that is why the science of the invisible feels so suited to the night, because night has always been the hour when we trust what we cannot fully see. And now, as the vessel drifts in almost perfect stillness, the distant galaxies around us seem softer than ever, like lanterns placed very far apart in a hall of velvet. And between them lies that enormous quiet where dark energy continues its patient work, not rushing, not pulsing, not pressing like a storm, but opening the universe so gradually that the grandest distances become grander still. And if you picture it now, you may imagine the cosmos as a great woven fabric suspended in endless calm, with visible galaxies stitched like faint golden threads, dark matter giving depth and hidden support to the pattern, and dark energy gently easing the entire cloth outward so slowly that the movement feels less like motion than like relaxation, as if the universe itself were loosening its shoulders after a very long day. And this may be one of the most comforting images yet in our gentle bedtime journey, because it suggests that on the largest scale possible, reality is not tightening, not clenching, not bracing, but releasing, widening, softening into more room. And perhaps your own mind can can follow that example now, releasing its last small hold on the day, loosening the bright knots of attention, widening into stillness rather than struggling for perfect emptiness, because deep sleep rarely arrives through effort. It arrives the way galaxies part in the dark, through quiet distance, through gradual softness, through the increasing space between one thought and the next, and another peaceful science truth to drift beside is that human understanding of the cosmos has often grown not by mastering everything at once, but by noticing the faintest clues, the dim lantern of a far supernova, the old afterglow of the early universe, the slow pattern of galaxies, the subtle balance of cosmic geometry. And this too is restful, because it reminds us that truth can arrive gently, in fragments, in whispers, in observations so delicate that they reward patience more than force. And now, the vessel seems almost suspended outside of time, with no visible landmark near us, except the far and tender scatter of galaxies, and the deep black grace between them. And in this late hour of the voyage, dark energy no longer feels like an abstract concept at all, but like the mood of the universe itself, a mood of spaciousness, of calm release, of endless room for old light to travel and old questions to remain beautifully open. And if some final wakeful thought still asks why expansion speeds up, you may answer it tonight in the softest possible way by saying that the universe appears to contain a quiet ingredient that lets space keep opening more and more over time. And that, for now, this mystery is not a burden but a cradle, not a problem pressing down, but a vast softness unfolding outward. And so the bright things grow gentler, the hidden things grow more meaningful, and the whole cosmos becomes a lesson in how much peace can live inside what is unseen, how much order can rest inside what is dim, how much comfort can come from remembering that the universe is mostly made not of harsh brightness, but of deep quiet. And as that thought settles around you like a warm midnight tide, you may let your awareness drift lower and lower, farther from the sharp shores of waking, farther into this sleep story, this bedtime story, this gentle bedtime passage through the calm, invisible majority of the cosmos, until the last bright edges of thought soften into darkness, and darkness itself becomes kind, spacious, and full of rest as our vessel continues to rest within the immeasurable hush of deep space, where no nearby landmark remains, and the old black hole from the beginning of our voyage has long since dissolved into memory. We arrive at another of the most relaxing facts in this sleep story, a fact so quiet and so spacious that it feels almost like a blanket settling over the mind. And that is this, that the largest part of the universe's future may be shaped not by sudden events, but by the gentle widening of the silence between the farthest lights. And perhaps there is no more soothing idea for a bedtime story than that, because it means the cosmos is not racing toward noise, not gathering for some great shout, but relaxing into greater and greater stillness, allowing each distant galaxy to keep its own soft glow, while the sea between cosmic islands grows broader, darker, and more serene. And as you listen to this nighttime story, letting your body sink deeper into comfort, you may imagine those galaxies not as crowded sparks in a storm, but but as lanterns placed with exquisite care across a velvet plain, each one surrounded by room enough to breathe, room enough to shine, room enough to become faint and dreamlike without ever losing its beauty. And one especially calming science fact to fall asleep to is that the universe, even in its vastness, does not expand in a chaotic or ragged way on the largest scales we are considering tonight, but with a smoothness that allows astronomers to speak of an overall cosmic story, a broad pattern in which dark energy quietly shapes the future. And that future, in the most peaceful imagination, is not a tale of violence, but of thinning brightness, widening darkness, and increasing calm, as if reality itself were dimming the lamps one by one in a grand and silent hall, so that everything may rest more softly. And perhaps this is why dark energy belongs so naturally in a relaxing story, because it teaches us that change can be tender, that the deepest transformations can arrive not as impact, but as distance, not as rupture, but as release. And now, if you like, you may picture the whole universe as an endless sleeping garden at midnight, with every galaxy a flower of light opening slowly in the dark, while the unseen spaciousness between them continues to widen with such patience that no petal trembles, no root is disturbed, no quiet corner loses its dignity. And in that garden, our vessel barely moves at all, or seems not to move, because here motion has become so slow and scale has become so immense that the truest feeling is simply suspension, a floating pause held between ancient light and future silence. And another sleepy science fact to carry gently now is that as expansion continues over unimaginable spans, the night sky available to any one future observer may become simpler, emptier, calmer, with many faraway galaxies drifting beyond easy sight. And while that may sound lonely in the bright language of day, here in this gentle bedtime, it can feel almost sacred, like a chapel after the voices have gone, like snow falling in a distant field, like the softening of thought just before deep sleep takes hold. And if your own mind has been full today, crowded with tasks, memories, plans, and bright unfinished things, perhaps the universe offers a kind lesson in this chapter, showing that peace sometimes comes not from adding more, but from widening the spaces between what remains, from letting thoughts drift farther apart, from allowing the inner sky to grow quieter, until only a few gentle lights are left: breath, warmth, rest, the low tide of calm narration. And another beautiful truth hidden in the science is that the cosmos can preserve local tenderness even while becoming more spacious overall, because stars remain in galaxies, galaxies remain in bound groups, and small structures can endure within a larger destiny of widening distance. And that is deeply comforting for a sleep story, because it means that nearness and vastness are not enemies, that intimacy can survive inside immensity, that what is close and warm may remain close and warm, even while the far horizons recede into dream. And perhaps that is the feeling most worth carrying with you now, that you are not asked to hold the whole universe tonight, not asked to chase the farthest galaxies or solve the last mystery of dark energy, but only to rest within your own small island of softness, while the great dark opens beyond you in perfect patience. And as our vessel drifts onward in this bedtime story, the far lanterns of distant galaxies seem gentler than ever, some steady, some faint, all of them surrounded by enormous reaches of velvet black. And it becomes easier and easier to understand why the night has always invited the human mind toward surrender. Because the universe at its calmest scale does not demand, it receives. It does not hurry, it allows. And dark energy, whatever its final explanation may be, becomes in this moment less a difficult concept than a mood of release. A quiet permission for the cosmos to keep unfolding. A subtle generosity written into the structure of space itself, and that same permission may belong to you now as well. Permission to stop arranging every thought. Permission to let the day recede. Permission to feel your awareness growing wider and softer and more thinly lit, until each remaining thought becomes like a far galaxy in a sleeping sky, beautiful, quiet, and slowly drifting into a darkness that is not empty but kind, not cold but velvety, not final but deeply restful. And so the universe continues its calm expansion. The farthest lights keep their dignified silence. The wide dark grows even wider, and you, held inside this gentle bedtime, this sleep story, this calming narration of space and softness, may drift lower and lower into deep sleep, as though the whole cosmos were breathing outward just to make more room for your dreams. As our vessel lingers in the deep and velvety stillness beyond all familiar landmarks, with only the faintest far-scattered galaxies glowing like golden dust across the widening dark, we arrive at another of the most relaxing facts in this sleep story, a fact that feels less like information and more like a long, gentle sigh released by the universe itself. And that is this: that if dark energy continues behaving with the same calm steadiness it seems to show now, then the future cosmos may keep opening for ages beyond ages, not with haste, not with drama, but with a serene and nearly unimaginable patience. And perhaps there is no better thought for a bedtime story than one in which reality itself chooses spaciousness over strain, silence over noise, distance over collision, because it means the great story of the stars can continue in a soft and dignified unfolding, each galaxy keeping its own quiet glow, while the grand halls between them become broader and darker and more restful still. And as you listen to this nighttime story, letting your breathing become slow, and even you may imagine the universe as a vast dark garden after midnight, where every lantern has been lowered to its gentlest brightness, and every path has been softened by shadow. And in that garden dark energy is not a storm crossing the sky, not a force that startles or intrudes, but a hidden kindness in the structure of space, a quiet permission for the garden to keep growing wider, to keep making more room around every light, more room around every silence, more room even around the oldest and most patient beams of starlight as they travel through the deep. And one especially soothing science fact to rest beside tonight is that the farther into the future this expansion continues, the more the large-scale universe may come to feel like a collection of distant islands separated by vast, peaceful seas, with gravity still holding nearby structures close, while the farthest shores drift softly beyond easy reach. And there is something deeply comforting in that image, because it means the cosmos is able to preserve islands of nearness within an ever-widening ocean of calm. And perhaps your own resting mind can do the same, holding only the nearest and kindest things now, the softness beneath you, the weight of your blanket, the hush in the room, the gentle bedtime cadence of this relaxing story, while everything far away grows fainter and less important, not lost, not denied, simply given more distance, more darkness, more quiet. And now the vessel seems almost completely motionless within the calm, though somewhere beyond feeling and beyond measure, the universe continues its immense unfolding. And if you like, you may picture each distant galaxy as a little harbor of stars, each one glowing with its own old light, while the dark between harbors stretches into a velvet sea so broad that even time itself seems to soften upon it. And this is one of the loveliest lessons hidden inside sleepy science, that the largest future anyone can imagine may still be gentle, may still be elegant, may still unfold without a single harsh sound. And perhaps that is why dark energy feels so surprisingly suited to calming narration, because it teaches the mind how to release its grip, how to think in slower motions, how to let widening become comfort rather than fear. And another peaceful truth to carry now is that the universe does not need to rush toward its future any more than you need to rush toward sleep, because both arrive by degrees, by softenings, by little surrenders of tension, by the quiet spacing out of what once felt crowded and urgent. And in this way, the cosmos becomes a mirror for rest, with galaxies drifting farther apart, just as thoughts do when the mind begins to settle, each concern moving gently away from the next, until there is room enough for silence to gather between them, room enough for deep sleep to rise like a dark, warm tide. And as our vessel keeps watch in this spacious serenity, the few remaining lights seem more precious for their remoteness, more tender for the darkness around them. And the unseen influence of dark energy feels less like a puzzle now, and more like a lullaby written into the night itself, a slow promise that there will always be more room ahead, more quiet beyond, more space for light to stretch, more time for stillness to deepen. And if some tiny part of your waking mind still asks what it means that expansion speeds up, you may answer in the softest possible way tonight by imagining that the fabric of the universe is relaxing outward with exquisite patience, and that over immense ages, this relaxation becomes the dominant mood of the cosmos, a kind of vast celestial exhale that never strains and never ends. And under that image, your own awareness may soften further, because you do not need to follow every far galaxy. You do not need to hold every science fact in perfect clarity. You do not need to stay at the bright edge of thought. And instead, you may simply float here in this sleep story, this bedtime story, this gentle bedtime voyage through a universe that widens without worry, where every distant lantern is allowed its halo, every silence is allowed its depth, and every tired mind is allowed to drift a little farther from effort, a little farther from detail, a little farther from day, until the expanding dark feels less like distance and more like comfort, less like emptiness and more like a cradle. And you sink into it slowly, peacefully, and without resistance, as though the whole quiet future of the cosmos were opening outward only to make more room for your dreams. As our vessel remains suspended in the endless velvet hush, where the last familiar landmarks have long since melted into memory, and only the faintest faraway galaxies shimmer like resting embers across the dark, we arrive at another of the most relaxing facts in the sleep story. A fact so soft in its meaning that it feels almost less like science and more like a lullaby written into the structure of reality itself. And that is this, that the universe appears to follow patterns of astonishing calm, patterns so broad and patient that even its great mysteries seem to unfold with grace. And among those patterns is the quiet truth that as matter grows more spread out across an ever larger cosmos, the steady influence associated with dark energy comes to shape the future more and more, like a silent tide rising beneath all things. And perhaps there is no better thought for a bedtime story than one in which the largest motions are also the gentlest, because it means the cosmos is not straining, not rushing, not trembling with urgency, but easing into spaciousness with a composure so deep that even time seems to lie down beside it. And as this nighttime story continues, you may imagine the mathematics behind the universe not as cold symbols on a hard page, but as soft lines of balance drawn through the darkness, delicate instructions for how stars gather, how light travels, how galaxies drift, and how empty space itself may carry a subtle character that slowly changes the rhythm of expansion. And in this relaxing story, those hidden balances become something almost musical, as if the cosmos were guided by a score too vast to hear directly, yet calm enough to feel. A score in which gravity hums its low, inward note, while dark energy sustains a quieter outward note, and over immense ages, the outward note lingers more and more clearly in the great halls between galaxies, not because gravity disappears, but because the room itself becomes so large that spaciousness gains a deeper voice. And there is something deeply soothing in this, because it reminds us that not every answer in life comes from force. Sometimes an answer comes from scale, from patience, from giving a pattern enough time to reveal itself. And now, as you listen and begin perhaps to fall asleep more fully, you may picture each distant galaxy as a slow and luminous chord held in the dark, while the universe around it stretches wider with exquisite slowness, and every beam of old light crossing that widening space becomes part of the same serene composition, a calming narration written not in words, but in distance, redshift, and silence. And another sleepy science fact to carry gently tonight is that some of the most profound discoveries in cosmology emerged not from loud events, but from tiny differences, faint dimmings, subtle patterns, the almost imperceptible clues that told patient observers the cosmos was not merely expanding, but doing so in an increasingly spacious way. And this may be one of the kindest lessons hidden inside dark energy, that the universe rewards stillness of attention that the deepest truths may arrive like whispers rather than declarations. And if your thoughts have been busy today, bright and crowded and restless, perhaps this chapter offers a quieter model, showing that understanding itself can be soft, can come in partial light, can remain unfinished, and still be beautiful. And now, the vessel seems less like a craft moving through space, and more like a point of awareness, floating inside an infinite exhale, while the galaxies beyond us keep their elegant distance, and the darkness between them feels not empty, but generous. And perhaps that is the best image for dark energy in a gentle bedtime, not a pushing or a pulling in any ordinary sense, but a generosity of room, a permission for the universe to keep opening, a slow allowance written into the deep fabric of space. And under that allowance, the future does not crash toward us. It unfolds, petal by petal, age by age, horizon by horizon, until even the farthest lights seem content to grow softer in their own time. And there is such peace in that picture, because it means reality itself knows how to loosen its hold without losing its beauty. And perhaps you can do the same now, loosening the hold of the day, loosening the small grip of thought, loosening each remaining thread of attention, until your mind becomes more spacious too. And another quiet truth in this sleep story is that the more room there is between thoughts, the easier it becomes for rest to gather, just as the broader universe gives dark energy more of the stage on which to reveal its calm influence. And so your own inner sky may begin to mirror the outer one, with ideas drifting farther apart, with worries dimming like distant galaxies, with silence widening until it is no longer a gap to cross, but a place to rest. And if any final wakefulness remains, let it rest beside the mystery instead of wrestling with it, because you do not need to solve the universe tonight. You need only float within it. And as our vessel lingers in the great dark, where everything has become softer than before, this sleep story, this bedtime story, this gentle bedtime drift through dark energy and widening space becomes simpler and simpler, quieter and quieter, until all that remains is breath, distance, velvet silence, and the slow, beautiful sense that the cosmos is letting go with infinite patience. And you may let go with it, slipping deeper into deep sleep, carried by the same calm that lets galaxies part, that lets ancient light travel, that lets space itself continue opening without sound, without effort, and without end, as our vessel lingers in the deep and dreamlike stillness, where the universe has become a vast velvet sea of distance, and the first black hole from the opening of our journey has faded so completely into memory that it feels like the shadow of a thought rather than a place. We arrive at another of the most relaxing facts in this sleep story, a fact that feels especially gentle in the late hush of the voyage. And that is this, that in a universe shaped by dark energy, the farthest visible shores of the cosmos may grow softer and quieter with time, not because they are taken away in any sudden or sorrowful manner, but because space itself continues opening between all distant things with such immense patience that the old light reaching us becomes thinner, redder, fainter, and more dreamlike. And perhaps there is no better image for a bedtime story than that, a universe where distance itself becomes a kind of lullaby, turning the farthest galaxies into dim lanterns at the edge of sleep. And as you rest more deeply now, perhaps already drifting toward deep sleep, while this calming narration continues around you, you may imagine those distant galaxies as gentle harbors of stars floating across an endless midnight ocean, each one glowing in its own calm and noble way, while the sea between them widens so gradually that no ripple can be felt, no motion can be heard, only a growing spaciousness, only a broadening silence, only the tender sense that reality itself prefers softness over haste. And one especially soothing science fact to fall asleep to is that the light from very distant galaxies tells the story of this widening by arriving stretched, with its wavelengths drawn longer by the expansion of space, as though the universe were taking every bright message and singing it more slowly over time, lowering its tone, softening its color, and allowing it to arrive not as a sharp announcement, but as a hush from the deep past. And this is such a beautiful idea for a relaxing story, because it means that even the science of dark energy can be felt as a gradual quieting, a slow dimming into serenity, a patient transformation by which the cosmos becomes ever more spacious without ever becoming cruel. And now, if you like, you may picture the vessel not as moving through darkness, but as resting within it, cradled by a silence so wide and so complete that it no longer feels empty at all, only restful, only full of room. And another sleepy science fact to carry gently tonight is that the large-scale future implied by dark energy is one in which many distant galaxies may eventually slip beyond easy visibility from any local cosmic island, leaving each bound region of stars with a night sky that is simpler, quieter, and more inward. And here in this gentle bedtime, that future does not feel lonely, but peaceful, like a library after midnight, like a garden after snowfall, like a lamp left burning in one window, while all the hills beyond have gone dark and soft. And perhaps there is comfort in that for a tired mind, because sleep too is a kind of simplification, not a loss, but a quiet narrowing into what is nearest and kindest. The breath, the bed, the faint rhythm of words, the release of effort, the easing of thought into a larger hush. And as our vessel remains suspended among these almost imagined distances, the few visible galaxies before us seem less like destinations and more like notes held far apart in a piece of music written for the slowest possible hour, each one surrounded by generous measures of silence, each one allowed to glow without competition. And dark energy, whatever its ultimate explanation, becomes, in this nighttime story, the reason the music has so much room, the reason each note lingers in its own halo, the reason the cosmic hall keeps widening without sound. And perhaps that is why the subject of accelerating expansion can feel so unexpectedly tender, because instead of telling a story of collision or alarm, it tells a story of the universe learning how to become quieter on the grandest scale, how to let its farthest lights recede with dignity, how to offer more and more darkness, not as absence, but as shelter. And if any thought remains awake within you now, tracing the outline of these ideas, you may let that thought become one more distant shore, one more lantern fading softly into the widening night, because another truth hidden inside this gentle bedtime is that the mind does not need to hold everything close in order to be safe. And often peace begins when there is more room between things, more room between tasks, more room between memories, more room between one passing thought and the next, until rest itself becomes the largest presence, just as dark energy becomes the largest influence in the broad future of the cosmos. And so the whole universe around us seems to model the art of letting go without fear, of becoming more spacious without becoming less beautiful. And under that example, your own awareness may soften further still, your body heavy and calm, your thoughts slow and widely spaced, your breathing like a quiet tide on a shore no one needs to reach. And now, the farthest galaxies seem almost to shimmer at the edge of dream, their old light crossing the patient dark, while space opens and opens and opens. And this sleep story, this bedtime story, this relaxing story about dark energy becomes simpler with every breath, until all that remains is the feeling of being carried by something vast and gentle, a universe that keeps widening with infinite composure, and a mind that no longer needs to follow every distant light, but may simply drift and drift and drift into the velvety peace beyond thought. Now, at the far and peaceful end of our voyage, as the vessel rests in the deepest hush of the widening universe, and the last distant galaxies glow only as the faintest silver gold embers in a sea of velvet night, this sleep story begins its final softening, and nothing more is asked of you now except rest, because you have traveled far enough through dark energy and ancient light and the calm geometry of space, and you have listened long enough to the quiet truth that the universe keeps opening with patient grace. And so this bedtime story may become even slower here, even gentler, as though every word were wrapped in dark silk and laid down one by one upon the still surface of your thoughts. And if any part of your mind is still awake enough to notice the stars, let it notice how soft they have become, how distant, how kind, how untroubled by hurry, because the cosmos around you is not racing toward anything tonight. It is simply widening in silence, offering more room, more darkness, more calm, and perhaps that is the last and loveliest fact to fall asleep to, that the universe does not need noise in order to change, does not need drama in order to become more spacious, and in the same way, you do not need effort in order to enter deep sleep. You do not need to solve one more thing, or finish one more thought, or hold yourself at the bright edge of wakefulness, because rest can come the way galaxies part in the far reaches of space, gradually, gently, with more and more room between one thought and the next. And now the vessel feels less like a place and more like a cradle suspended in the tender dark, a quiet little harbor floating inside an endless celestial sea. And the old black hole from the beginning of the journey has long since faded into pure memory, while ahead there is only the expanding night, smooth and serene and almost unimaginably vast. And yet it does not feel too large, not now, not in this relaxing story, because the dark has become velvety and protective. The distance has become soothing, and the mystery has become soft enough to rest inside. And if you imagine the universe once more before sleep takes you, imagine it not as cold emptiness, but as a great sleeping chamber whose walls recede forever without sound, while ancient light crosses the room in whispers, and dark energy gives the whole space permission to keep opening, 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 as though reality itself were breathing out in one endless and peaceful exhale. And under that exhale, your body may grow heavier, your jaw looser, your brow smoother, your breath slower, until even this calming narration begins to feel less like language and more like a tide. A warm black tide carrying you farther from the shore of the day, farther from clocks and tasks and names, and deeper into the gentle bedtime quiet, where no brightness needs to be followed and no question needs to be answered. And if there is one final image to keep for this nighttime story, let it be this: the farthest galaxies drifting like lanterns toward dream, their light stretching softer through expanding space, while all around them the unseen hush of dark energy continues its patient work, not urgent, not forceful, only steady, only spacious, only calm. And that same calm may widen within you now, not outward into the sky, but inward through the mind, creating more space between thoughts, more softness around memory, more darkness between the last little sparks of attention, until each thought becomes a distant star, and each star grows dimmer and gentler and farther away. And if one remains for a moment, let it remain, because even a final waking thought can drift. And if another follows, let that drift too, because this bedtime story has nowhere left to go except downward into rest, downward into stillness, downward into the slow, lovely quiet where the universe no longer feels like something outside you, but something surrounding you with infinite patience. And now, the vessel barely exists at all, except as a feeling of being held, and the galaxies barely exist except as faint glows dissolving into the velvet. And time itself seems to loosen and lengthen and fade, until the only rhythm left is your breathing, so soft now, so even, so steady, as though you have joined the great cosmic exhale and become part of its quiet, widening peace. And perhaps that is the final comfort hidden inside tonight's gentle bedtime, that you never needed to travel anywhere at all to find this calm, because the whole relaxing story has only been guiding you back to the simplest and most ancient refuge, the darkness behind closed eyes, the softness of surrender, the beautiful permission to let go. And so let go now, very slowly, very safely, very softly, while the last visible shores of the universe grow quiet, while the old light fades into tenderness, while the great spacious dark continues opening with inexhaustible grace. And while this sleep story, this relaxing story, this nighttime story of dark energy and silent expansion becomes lighter and dimmer and more distant with every breath, until it is no longer a story at all, only a hush, only a cradle, only a vast and velvety silence in which you may drift and drift and drift and finally fall asleep.